Everybody see that?
Yes, we can see Steve.
Yep.
Molly, we good?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you everyone for joining the Mid Branch Trail project from Fort Dodge to Tacoma design, and we welcome you for this project. Steve, next page. So we start with the quick introductions. My name is Sam Al-Hawamdi. The project manager for this project. I'm gonna kick it to my rest of my team to introduce themselves for this project.
Hi everyone, my name is Michael Alvino. I'm a bicycle program specialist at DDOT, and I've been involved in the planning and design of the Metropolitan Branch Trail.
Hey everybody, my name is Steve Zender with Stantec, and I'm the design project manager for this project.
Molly, you want? Okay.
You're on mute, Molly.
Thank you. Apologies.
Can't do it.
I'm Molly Burns. I'm a technical writer with DDOT's Information Technology Division, and I will be supporting tonight's meeting.
Hi, my name is Andrew Aguilar, and I'm the design engineer for the consultant.
And yeah, thanks everyone. And also we have another staff with the panelist team. They will be like experts, and they will help us through the question section, and will be like supporting our presentation as well. Next slide, Steve. And we'll let Molly now take a turn just to give some quick tutorial for the virtual public meetings before we start our presentation. Molly, can you just give a quick tutorial for public?
So first of all, welcome to tonight's virtual public meeting. We're all kind of learning how to conduct public meetings in this format, so please bear with us if there are any technical difficulties. I'm going to review some basic controls to help you participate on this platform. Before I begin, I want to note that tonight's meeting is an open meeting, and as required by DC Code 2-578, this meeting is being recorded, and the recording will be made available to the public. The video will be shared on the project team's website tomorrow. If you do not wish to have your voice recorded, please do not ask to speak. You may enter any questions or comments using the Q&A feature during the question and answer session following the presentation. I will review a few features to help you participate over the next few slides. Finally, if you need immediate technical support during this meeting, please call 202-286-3218. Next slide, please. Tonight, we have 2 American Sign Language interpreters with us to translate the meeting. If you are joining us via an internet browser, you shouldn't need to do anything, and you will see the ASL interpreter's video pinned in the top right corner of your screen, similar to the side-by-side view shown in the slide. For those of you using the WebEx desktop app, we highly recommend changing your view from the default stack view, shown in the image on the left, to the side-by-side view, which is shown in the image on the right. To change your view, click the layout icon located in the upper right of the WebEx window. For both browser and desktop app users, please close any open panels if you would like to see the presenter's video feeds as well. By panel, I mean any open boxes similar to the participants panel shown in the images on the slide. The ASL interpreters will be pinned to the larger box in the side-by-side view. Next slide, please. Moving on, I will review how you may participate in the question and answer session following the presentation. To type in your questions, you'll be using the Q&A feature. If the Q&A panel is not already open, please click the 3-dot icon in the bottom right and select Q&A. If you're joining us via browser or mobile app, your meeting controls should appear in the bottom middle of your screen. Please click the question mark icon to access the Q&A. A new panel or window will appear. In the Ask field, please make sure All Panelists is selected. Click or tap the text box to type your question and press the Enter key or Send button to send your question. The project team will be reviewing any questions received during the Q&A session. If you would like to speak up and ask your question, please raise your hand. To raise your hand, click on Participants on the bottom right corner of the WebEx window. If you're joining us via browser or mobile app, your controls are a little different, so you will be clicking on the person icon. A new panel or window will appear. Near the bottom of the panel or window, there will be a small hand icon. Click the hand icon to raise your hand. A project team member will acknowledge you before we unmute you so you may speak. After you ask your question, we will mute you so the project team can respond and continue the Q&A. Thank you, and I hope reviewing these features will help you participate in tonight's meeting. I'm turning it back over to Samer to review tonight's agenda.
Thank you very much, Molly, and I hope that tutorial help you out, guys, how you to be able to answer questions. So let's go back to our meetings, and here's our agenda. We're starting with the project background, and then we move into the project overview, which project background will be more about like the overall mid-branch trail, which is not only a section, because mid-branch, it's gone to multiple sections. So we'll give you like a quick background about that. And then we go now to a project overview, which is the section we're gonna like talk about over this presentation, which is from Fort Totten to Tacoma. And then the next section will be the project area. So we can locate it where is the trail will be along for the project limits. And the next one will be the focus areas. So during the mid-branch trail, we have some areas we have like some critical design. We have to focus on these areas along mid-branch, and we explain this in details along this presentation. And in addition, we have additional design features, which is more things we adding to mid-branch. Also, the schedule from the start to construction, we'll discuss about this one as well. And the next steps will be what we're going to do after this presentation, what will be the next step will be, and the stakeholder coordination, because this project will involve a lot of like stakeholders, private and public, and who will let you know who's the stakeholders. And lastly, will be the question sections. Will be when we could hear your questions. Will be like what Molly mentioned, either in a text file, or you could like raise your hand and you can speak. And also, you could, if you have a question during the presentation, feel free to type your question in the Q&A section along the presentation. If you have a question you might like mention it earlier, feel free to just type it in and we could look into it. Next slide, please. Mike, would you like to start talk about the project background?
Sure. Thank you, Samer, and thanks everyone for joining tonight. This is our first virtual public meeting, so I look forward to hearing the questions and answers after the presentation. Just to set a little bit of context, the Metropolitan Branch Trail fits into a regional vision of a trail network over 850 miles in the District, Maryland, and Virginia. And that vision connects trails throughout the region, both for transportation and recreation, people of all ages and abilities. You can go to the next slide. For a little bit more specific background on the Metropolitan Branch Trail, if you're not familiar with the Met Branch Trail, the Met Branch Trail follows the old Metropolitan Branch of the B&O Railroad. And the idea for turning this into a trail goes back to the 1990s. And in the district and in sections of Maryland, it's been built in sections over the past 20 or so years. Here we see some of the milestones of development of the trail when some of the first sections were built back in the late 90s and early 2000s. This section that we're focusing on tonight is from Fort Totten to Tacoma. And the rest of the presentation will focus in more closely on that. We finished the sort of environmental planning for this section in 2010, 2011. We completed preliminary designs for this section in 2015 and 2016. And now we're approaching the final design and moving toward construction. You can move on to the next slide. And as Samer mentioned, this is only one section of the Metropolitan Branch Trail that we're going to focus on tonight, Fort Totten to Tacoma section. We did want to give an update on some of the other sections of the Metropolitan Branch Trail under development. And there are many of them, so we'll give brief updates, but if you have questions on these, you can follow up directly with me after the meeting, and we can connect you with some of our other staff. So for the other sections of the Metropolitan Branch Trail that are currently in development, there's a section on 8th Street Northeast between Franklin Street and Monroe, where we have a proposal and a plan to install protected bike lanes later this year that would connect the existing sections of trail that run from through Eckington and Edgewood up to Franklin Street, and then picking up the section in Brookland that runs along John McCormick Drive. Moving north from there, there's a section of trail currently under construction in Brookland to Fort Totten that connects the John McCormick Drive section of the trail with the Fort Totten Metro section, Fort Totten Metro Station. That project is currently under construction and is anticipated to be completed later this year. There's a specific project website for construction updates, metbranchtrail-forttotten.com. Moving north from there, parallel to the area that we're talking about tonight, there's a future project to conduct an environmental assessment in the Manor Park area to bring the trail off of the street between Briggs Road and Oglethorpe Street. That project is proposed to begin after the completion of the trail. And then in the Tacoma area, we're working on starting a new design this year for the section of trail from Blair Road to Piney Branch Road that follows the western alignment that was proposed in the Metropolitan Branch Trail Concept Plan and Environmental Assessment on the west side of the railroad tracks through Tacoma. That would be the final section of the Met Branch Trail, connecting it north-south with the sections north and into Maryland. And then lastly, along Eastern Avenue between Piney Branch Road and the DC Maryland line in the city of Tacoma Park, the short one-block section of the trail that we're actually breaking ground construction on very soon, any day now. And that's, we're taking advantage of some recently completed PEPCO work to sort of move that project into construction. And we were expected to complete that construction in June 2021. So again, if you have any questions on the other sections of the trail, feel free to contact me. But for the rest of the presentation, we'll focus on the Fort Totten to Tacoma section, and I'll turn it back over to Samer.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for the detailed information. So now we're moving to the project overview, which is the section what Michael mentioned will be Fort Totten to Tacoma section, and that's what the presentation will be about. So the current project focuses on mid-trail section from Fort Tacoma neighborhood. So we'll be like focusing on that section, and this section will the trail will be like on street and off street. So it will be the section where it's in green, that will be like off street, where it's the red line showing the on the street segment, and the rest of the trail will be like off the street along Blair Road. So the preliminary design, the 30% design for section was completed in 2016, and on this project we're starting taking that project from 30% design all the way to 100% design, and we are currently at the 60% design for this project, and the plan is already will be uploaded to the project group site after this presentation, as we mentioned earlier. Next slide, please. Next slide. Thanks. So here we talk about the project areas. Will be like I said, we start from Fort Totten. So we start first place northeast and making left on Riggs Road all the way down to First Street, which is what will be like the on street sections to South Dakota Avenue, and all the way up to McDonald's, and making left on Blair Road. When we get to Blair Road, will be like off the street section. Next slide. And we'll continue along Blair Road all the way up to Aspen Street, and we'll be like off street as well. And we'll make left on Aspen Street to Aspen Street, and we'll be like continue on with this project at Sandy Spring Road. Next slide, please. And here we'll turn it to Steve, who will start about the focus area for the design. Steve, can you?
Okay, thanks, Samer. Yeah, again, my name is Steve Zender, transportation engineer with Stantec Consulting. Thanks everyone for joining us this evening again, and we're very excited to be working on this project. I also want to say thanks to DDOT for their collaborative approach and guidance as we work through the design process. And lastly, before we get started, I also just want to recognize a couple additional members on the team. Andrew already introduced himself, but also here tonight, we have Robert Milstead, Stantec Senior Traffic Engineer, Kathleen Dayhill, Stantec Landscape Architect, and Alan Yang from Precision Systems. Alan is the team's lead street lighting designer. So we'd be happy to answer any specific questions related to their areas of focus at the end of the presentation. If you've partaken in previous meetings, you've seen the 30% design. With the 30% design, DDOT finalized the alignment and determined the limits of the project. As Samra said, we recently submitted the 65% design, and as we've gone from 30% to 65%, the goal has been really to start homing in on the details of the project. And with that, we've begun to focus on designing a facility that will be as safe and intuitive as possible. That means providing safe access to the trail at cross streets and resolving conflicting movements with traffic, especially along Blair Road Northwest. So other than 2 traffic signals, I'm not going to spend a lot of time discussing the south segment of the project. If you have questions about the south segment, we can discuss that more after the presentation. You can see on the slide here, let me get my pointer up here, that we have a number of locations that we'll be visiting as we kind of go through the presentation. We'll start with the signalized intersections, which are these stars throughout the corridor, and then we'll focus on the orange dots listed here, which are the improvements along Blair Road. And so just sort of to orient you kind of geographically, with each of those, we'll be working our way from south to north. Okay, so our first traffic signal is at 1st Street Northeast and Riggs Road. This signal was originally planned to be constructed with the rest of this project. However, DDOT, in working with stakeholders in the community, decided to accelerate the schedule for the construction. And actually, the plan is to implement the signal this spring of 2021. So as of tonight's meeting, that is the schedule, and the work is pending upon the completion of some PEPCO work in the area. So as of tonight, that's the plan. I want to note that the signal, once it's built, this will be sort of an interim condition. With the MBT project, we will also be implementing a bicycle signal in the southbound direction. So there will be some slight changes to the signing and marking and the signal infrastructure once the MBT project is completed. Just sort of, you can see on the slide here, the MBT will operate as a side path along Riggs Road Northwest between First Place, which is off the drawing here, but 1 block to the east, and between First Place and 1st Street Northeast. And then it will turn north onto 1st Street, where bicyclists will share the road with vehicles and pedestrians will use sidewalks. And as Michael mentioned earlier, there is a separate effort planned to eventually move this part of the alignment off street, but it will not be part of this project. Okay, so moving north, our next intersection is at New Hampshire, McDonald, and South Dakota. This will be a new traffic signal installed at this intersection. The Metro Branch Trail will cross New Hampshire Avenue from South Dakota Avenue to McDonald Place. On South Dakota, pedestrians will use the sidewalk that will continue from 1st Street Northeast and sort of bend around onto South Dakota Avenue. And they will use a sidewalk that isn't currently there, but DDOT does plan to construct on the east side of the street between Madison and New Hampshire under a separate sidewalk contract. And then cyclists will use shared lanes on South Dakota. On McDonald Place, pedestrians will continue to use the sidewalk. Traffic on McDonald Place is and will continue to be one-way eastbound, and then cyclists will share the eastbound lane with cars, and there will be a dedicated westbound contraflow bike lane. And as promised, I think at 30%, there will be no impacts to parking along McDonald. Okay, moving northward up to Blair Road to the next signal. we have 3 signals that we're going to cover here. So along Blair Road, there's technically four signalized intersections that will require improvement for the project. 2 of them are so close together, you can see it's sort of like one big intersection. At 2 of these intersections, we are proposing that signals will be modified to implement protected left turn phasing in the southbound direction. These changes are new to the design, and the reason for these changes is to mitigate against the risk of left turn collisions between motorists and cyclists. As a result, we do anticipate parking impacts along Blair Road southbound, immediately north of Peabody Street, which it would be 6 spaces, and then again immediately north of Van Buren, which will be 3 spaces. So that covers our traffic signal improvements for the project. Now I'd like to turn our focus to the other improvements along Blair Road Northwest. So heading back down to the block between McDonald and Oglethorpe Street, we have the Blair Road Community Garden to the east. And in the existing condition, there are sidewalks along both sides of this Blair Road Northwest. There's also a dirt road that provides access to the gardens from Oglethorpe Street Northwest. In the proposed condition, the MBT will be aligned along the east side of Blair Road. The access road will be shifted slightly eastward, and the paving will be upgraded to a graded aggregate surface. You can see that this is the orange road here is the access to the garden, and then the Metro Branch Trail is this blue trail alignment. And then also to improve access to the trail and bus stops in the area, we're proposing high visibility crosswalks with rapid flashing beacons, because these would be uncontrolled crossings of a multi-lane roadway with relatively high traffic volumes. That's why we're proposing the rectangular flashing beacons at those 2 crossings. And there's just a picture that kind of shows you what you may recognize these from other locations within the city. And here's just a before and after of what we expect things to look like. This is standing at Oglethorpe looking southward. So you can see the proposed entrance to the garden there on the left, and then the new trail here on the right. We are looking at some protective measures to protect these trees along Blair Road, fairly mature willow oaks. And then there's a bit of a drop off here, so we are looking at putting some railing along the path to protect trail users from the drop off. Okay, let's go to the intersection of Blair Road, Kansas Avenue, North Dakota, and Peabody. This is one of these intersections in the district that we all love, right? I mean, there's a lot of legs, everything kind of comes together. It's easily the most complicated intersection in the project. The existing condition, all legs do have marked controlled crosswalks, so we will already have good pedestrian accessibility to the trail. The MBT will be aligned on the east side of the road, so this is something new to the design. We've really been focusing hard on how to eliminate permissive left turns across the trail without jamming up traffic at this intersection. What we're proposing is to signalize left turns from Blair Road to Kansas Avenue via Peabody Street. This is a change from existing conditions because Peabody Street is currently one-way westbound, so drivers have to make their left turn from Blair Road onto Kansas currently. So what we're proposing to make Peabody 2-way and provide a continuous exclusive movement from Blair to Peabody to Kansas. So at this point, some of you might be asking, why are we so concerned about left turns? Drivers know that users in the side street crosswalk have the right of way. So the reason for providing exclusive left turns is to mitigate against collisions, mostly with bicyclists. So typically with pedestrians, drivers are expecting pedestrians in crosswalks on a side path, and as they approach the intersection, they'll see a pedestrian in their field of view. But let's say you're the driver and you're kind of waiting to turn left, and you might have to wait a little while, maybe 30 seconds or so for there to be a gap in traffic. Well, in that time, cyclists which were a lot further up the road, which obviously move a lot more quickly than pedestrians, may have come up in the rear and not really ever been in your field of view. So what we're trying to mitigate against is the situation where this cyclist, my laser pointer out again here, this cyclist is crossing the street at a high rate of speed. This driver finds a gap in traffic and tries to make his turn real quick, and then we have a collision right here in the crosswalk. So this is a common issue with side path designs, and what we typically try to do is make the left turns exclusive. So we'll have a separate left turn lane and then basically a red arrow. And when that arrow is red, the cyclists would have the right of way and pedestrians. And when that arrow is green, bikes and peds would be stopped until that movement is terminated. So, and then the last point I want to make on this slide is it does result in road widening and a reduction of 6 parking spaces north of Peabody on the southbound side of the road. So just to the north here, you can see the widening, and the parking spaces that would be eliminated are just off of the screen. Okay, moving a little bit further north, you can still see we're close to the intersection of Peabody and Kansas. DDOT is currently evaluating changes to turning movements at 7-Eleven separately. Heading north, we have several driveways that cross the trail, and some of these have very poor sight lines. So some of the things that we're trying to do to mitigate collisions between trail users and motorists, we're proposing a continuous asphalt paving surface through the driveways to help indicate the hierarchy of the trail, and the trail users have the right of way. The trail will have centerline and edgeline markings, and we may also consider green paint for conflict zones. We're proposing pavement marking stencils such as that say slow or crossing, and transverse markings or rumble strips in advance of conflict areas. And then at some of these blind spots where we have, say, a building corner and a vehicle may be coming out and maybe sort of focused on getting to the edge of the apron before turning, we're proposing to put in some signing that and possibly a stop bar that sort of indicates to drivers to stop before the trail and look both ways before proceeding out into the intersection. So here's just a typical section view. This is north of Kansas Avenue. This is another change from the 30% design. You might recall, if you were in the 30% meetings, that there will be a lane drop. Right now we have two, laser pointer again. We have 2 northbound lanes in the existing condition, and what we are proposing to do is drop one of those lanes. In the 30% design, the lane drop was proposed, I think, in the vicinity of Sheridan, and what we've done is take another look at that, and we're now proposing to drop that lane just in advance of Quackenboss Street, and then creating a parking lane to the north of Quackenboss that extends up to Sheridan. So I mentioned that we have a reduction in parking spaces elsewhere in the project. However, with the addition of this parking lane throughout the corridor, we actually have a net change in parking spaces of plus 11 spaces. So moving further north, at the intersection of Quackenboss, we're proposing high visibility crosswalks at Quackenboss. No rapid flashing beacons are proposed north of Kansas Avenue, as the road will only be 2 lanes instead of 4. So traffic volumes are lower and the posted speed is 25. So according to Federal Highway and DDOT guidelines, rapid flashing beacons are not warranted in these situations. I also want to point out that in the existing condition, there is some frontage parking within DDOT right of way in front of the liquor store here, and that does come into conflict with the trail. So what we are proposing is to eliminate the frontage parking, but compensate for that parking by adding this on-street parking along northbound Blair Road. Okay, continuing north to Blair Road at Rittenhouse Street. We're proposing again the high visibility crosswalk treatment. Again, we're trying to get people to the trail safely, so implementing these types of measures we think will help. These are uncontrolled crosswalks, so we want to do as much as we can to enhance safety at these locations. So we're also proposing, we have existing curb extensions on the west side of the street, but we will be proposing new curb extensions on the east side of the street as well to help with traffic calming and to reduce that crossing distance as much as possible. We do have a few conflicts with awnings in this area. There's an appliance store that has an awning that will be working to resolve that conflict, and then also the daycare just to the north. And then generally, we're looking to mitigate the risk of collisions between business patrons. So people that are, say, coming and going from these businesses, we're looking to mitigate the risk of collision between those patrons and the trail users with signing and marking. And also, we're looking at, nothing's been finalized, but we're looking at realigning the entrance and egress to the buildings, the path, I guess people take in front of the buildings to get to the doors with some sort of physical barrier. But like I said, this is all still under review. Again, just going slightly north, this is the same general situation at the daycare, where we're looking to use treatments to mitigate that risk of collision between the business patrons and the trail users with similar treatments. And here's just another typical section view of what it would look like with the bump out, the parking lane, the trail, and rumble strips. And sort of we have a little bit of space to work with between the trail and the base of these buildings. Okay, continuing north, as we the kind of the nature of the trail sort of changes here. We open up, we have one more property. It's a WMATA maintenance facility. And there are two driveways. The south driveway is currently in use and that will continue to be the case. I think it's right, actually, maybe down here. And then there's another driveway curb cut to the north, which is not in use. And WMATA has agreed, or I'm sorry, it's this one. WMATA and DDOT have agreed that this curb cut will be closed. Okay, so moving north to the segment between Underwood and Aspen Street, there are two northbound travel lanes. The outside travel lane will be converted to the shared use path. According to AASHTO, if a shared use path is 5 feet or closer to vehicular traffic, a barrier should be provided, which is what you see here in the rendering on the right. Some of you who attended the public meetings at 30% likely recognize this photo simulation. This design stretch, it hasn't changed much. So we're currently just working to finalize the details of the barrier design and drainage in this area. The existing retaining wall is owned by WMATA, and the footing extends below Blair Road. So WMATA does have an easement in the area. So we are coordinating with them on those items. But we don't propose to impact that wall or the footing below. We'll be just constructing the trail above that. The barrier will terminate intermittently as it approaches intersections where there's crosswalks. So at Van Buren, at Aspen, and then also there will be a crossing at Whittier. And here's just a slide that kind of shows what the limits of that barrier will be, and just a typical section that sort of shows, you know, the relationship between the travel lanes, the barrier, the trail. The trail in this area will be 10 feet wide with, I think, a 1 foot buffer to the wall. The barrier is 15 inches wide, and the travel lanes will end up being something between 10 and 11 feet wide. And then you have the parking lane, which is 8 feet wide. Okay, here's another change that we wanted to present here tonight. This is the area at 3rd Street and Whittier Street. You can see that there is a proposed crossing here. There would be a break in the barrier and the ramp. There would be a parallel type ramp and crossing the street. Currently today, 3rd Street is a two-way street, and we will be proposing to make it a one-way southbound street. And so vehicles intending to head northbound on Blair will take a right onto Whittier and then take a left onto Blair. And this results in, we are also proposing back-in angled parking, which results in a net increase in this area of 3 parking spaces. And then there's going to be some channelization with some new curb lines and sidewalks in this area to reduce this crossing distance as well. As you can see, it's a pretty far crossing distance today, and not an ideal situation for a pedestrian crossing the street, because vehicles don't have to deflect very much to make this turn and can still maintain a high rate of speed as they go to make this turn on southbound 3rd Street. Okay, and at the very north end of the project, the trail will turn east from Blair Road Northwest at Aspen Street, and will continue under the railroad bridge for 1 block, and then turn northward along Sandy Spring Road. This is the same alignment that was shown in the 30% design, but what we've sort of enhanced a little bit here is some of these connections to get to the trail. These improvements were recently added, so they're still kind of at a 30% level, and we're playing catch up on these. But you can see that we've added and upgraded the crosswalks and the signing and marking on all legs of these intersections to improve that safety, the safety of those connections from the neighborhood to the east. And then we've expanded the size of the channelizing island in here. We'll also be proposing a curb extension on this corner. We may have to adjust this a little bit to avoid parking impacts, but this is kind of the general idea. And then we'll also be looking at some additional treatments in this area to enhance safety. And then lastly, I'm going to turn it over to Samer after this slide, but they're also just heading back south to the very south end of the project along 1st Street Northeast. DDOT this was going to be part of the design, but actually DDOT has recently installed speed humps at 2 locations along 1st Street Northeast, just south of Kennedy Street, and then again between Kennedy Street and Longfellow Street. Those are recently pictures that were just taken recently of those speed humps. So with that, thank you, and I will give it back to Samer.
Thank you, Steve, for the detailed explanation for the Mid-Branch Trail design. And yeah, well, that's very helpful. Thank you very much. So now go back to the schedule for the project, since we have all the fun stuff we're going to do along Mid-Branch Trail. So like we said, I'm going to go over the schedule here, which is we started final design from January 2020, and we submit, I think, the 30% design May 2020, and now we're submitting the 65% design now, which is, like I said, will be uploaded to Mid-Branch Trail website. And we're looking, our goal to finish the 100% design in spring 2021. So, and based on that, we're looking to start construction in winter 2022 and finish it in fall 2023, which is gives about 2 years construction to finish that project be completed. Next slide, please. And the next step here, actually, we're looking forward to hear from you, comments, feedback about this presentation, about the design, and we appreciate your comments and feedback. It helps us a lot with design and to make it to the 100%. And please feel free to write your comments through our email, midbranchtrail@dc.gov, or you could contact me at my cell number and my email address for any more detailed information or any comments or anything about this project. And also we're gonna post them to, like I said earlier, on the project website. That's a link. You just, if you get this link, it gets you straight to the project page, and you will find this presentation and 65% plans and all the study we did along this project, and also any information or any update along the project will be there as well, uploaded. Next slide, please. And please, if you, for attendees, please, if you could go to this link, and if you could like fill this in information for attendees for attending this presentation or this meeting, and submit electronically to us, we'll appreciate that. And next slide, please. Lastly, here we list all our stakeholders here for this project. So we're in coordination with DCOR, Federal Highway, National Park Services, and all utilities. Like I said earlier, this project not only in design, we have our partner. We need to like coordinate with them to make the project move forward. So that's why we just would like to list them here, as well as you guys as well. Any public resident who live along the trail or the neighborhood. So yeah, we try to be best to coordinate with everyone. And like I said earlier, we're here to listen to you and like listen to your questions or your comments. Next slide, please. And the last part, which is the question section, like what Molly mentioned earlier. If you have any question, feel free to just type it in the Q&A section, or use the raise hand section in the chat as well. And if you are on the phone, if you could dial star and number 3, so we could and you could mention your question, because we see many people, they are like over the phone. So click star and number 3, so we could be able to receive your questions or comments. Thank you very much. Any questions for this presentation? Let's see if we have. Let's see, I'm just looking, see.
I'm seeing a number of questions
Fishing, yes.
coming through the chat.
Yep.
Maybe we can start there. The first question was from Robert Patton. What is the southern section you are leaving to later? I think that was in reference to at the beginning of the presentation, Steve said he would circle back to the section south of Blair and McDonald Place, which we looked at First Street Northeast.
You want me to address that, Michael, further?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go, Steve.
Yeah, so the project limits, and I can go back to that slide. Weird. There we go. Okay, so really what we were kind of focusing on tonight is we talked about the signal at First and Riggs. We talked about a new signal at New Hampshire. There's a small segment of the project at Riggs and then along First Place Northeast. We just didn't, those areas were designed at 30% and they haven't really changed much. We really wanted to focus tonight on areas of the alignment that have, or not the alignment, but of the project that have been updated. So these are part of the project. They will connect with the project that's currently under construction to the north or to the south. And just kind of a quick overview of this section. I don't have any pictures for it, but it would be an off-street alignment side path, basically, that runs along the west side of First Place Northeast. It will take a 90-degree bend here at Riggs Road and continue as a side path, and then up to that intersection that we talked about, where it will cross the street and become, for bicyclists, an on-road shared lane, and pedestrians will use a sidewalk. And then you heard Michael mention that there is a task right now, or a separate future effort planned to look at an environmental assessment for an off-street alignment, which is shown on this gray line, but which is not currently part of this project. Does that answer?
So I guess we move to the next question. Why share is on South Dakota Avenue, and that is not friendly for people who are not comfortable on roads?
I can respond to that, Sam.
Okay, thanks. Sure.
Yeah, so if you just stay on this slide, Steve, I think I see a couple other questions about this in the chat as well. So as you see here, there's sort of the green line that between Riggs Road, South Dakota Avenue to McDonald Place is the on-street portion of the project. And there's a gray line that routes on National Park Service property that would be off the road. So this was looked at previously in an environmental assessment that was done in conjunction with DDOT and the National Park Service. And it was decided for that project to not build the gray section, and that an on-street route was the preferred alternative along First Street, South Dakota, and McDonald Place. So we're moving forward with building that preferred alternative. And in the planning and design that we've done since the environmental assessment, we've gotten an agreement in principle from the National Park Service to revisit this environmental assessment. So as Steve was mentioning, that is a future project. It's not part of this effort, and it's something that DDOT intends to start on once the preferred alignment that was selected in the EA is constructed.
Okay, I think this question is answered. Now, I think that the next question, what is the width? I think it's follow-up for previous question from Robert, I think. What is the south section you are leaving to later? What is the width? So I think, do you want to answer this question, Steve?
The width of the trail, it varies from 10 to 12 feet. There's a few places along the trail where we have, say, like a pinch point because of a telephone or a utility pole, where we have to reduce the section briefly. But generally the width is 10 to 12 feet. Andrew, do you have anything to add to that?
No, you're correct, because there's a couple of utility poles which creates pinch points, but it's 10 to 12 feet. Yep.
I think the next question, I think you need a clear marks or protection to keep the car willing to use the community garden access road from turning into the bike trail. But actually, I could answer this. Between the trail and the access will be like a railing separation between the trail and the access for the garden. So we had that separation just to protect the bikers from the cars accessing that garden. So we have like separation between the trail and the access. If you could just show it, Steve, yeah, next picture. I don't know if you could point it, Steve, just show them that railing. Maybe it's not visible.
This one here?
Yep. So it's more like a fence would be, or a railing would be separating the trailer from the access.
Yeah, and they're actually grade separated as well.
Yes.
The gravel road, even if the railing wasn't there, it would be very difficult to drive up this because it's sloped at, I think, 2 to 1 to maybe 1.5 to 1 in some spots.
Okay. All right. For the next question, can we reduce the number of curb cut at 7-Eleven and extra space storage? Yeah, we evaluate the locations, but those locations actually, those curb cuts been used, so DDOT cannot like close any curb cut already like used. So it's not our it's not in our like we are favored to close them, but we can't because it's been used for all these like businesses. And if we close them, will impact those businesses. The trail, we're building the trail here just to serve the community and the businesses, and we cannot like close any curb cut that serve or will impact any business along the trail. Next question. What thought has been given to routing the trail across NVS land between First Street Northeast and our track? Whether if we already covered this, I took me longer to join the meeting than anticipated. I think, Michael, you answered that question earlier.
Yes. Bring back to the section of trail between First Street Northeast and the railroad tracks on NPS property that we talked about earlier.
Okay, could we propose to add a cab station and or bike parking at third? Sorry, I just scrolled down. At third and place, instead of adding 3 parking space, we could take that in consideration, but we could think about that over when we go back, and we could take as a comment and we just like respond to this question. It's something we could consider. Thank you for your question. When you can get to Aspen, is the trail evaluated off the street or it is at the street level? Do you have a rendering or the space usage for the Aspen underpass? This picture showing the trail will be like under the bridge, so that will be the trail extended under the bridge, and we'll provide more like visual and more like visual pictures. And if you more detail, we would have you like to just email us your concern. We could provide you more detail for this section. How the trail will be running under along Aspen.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Steve, you can talk about this a little bit, because I think it will be. You can get a visual here from the Google Street View. It'll be above the curb, but at that sort of sidewalk level.
Yeah, the 65% plans propose the trail to be at the sidewalk level here, and then this kind of dirt space is proposed to actually be brick pavers.
Okay, what's the next question is, could you clarify when you plan to start environmental assessment for the proposed feature of street route north of Riggs? I think, Michael, would you answer that?
Yeah, I think we talked about this a little bit, but yeah, just to reiterate, once this project is completed, then we would move forward with the environmental assessment.
DDOT team and all consulting, thanks, great job. Great job. Can we shorten the time between 100% design and start construction? Let's move faster. Thank you. Actually, we would love to, but like I said, we have to coordinate with our stakeholders, such as the utilities and water and so we have now the next phase of this design actually is more focusing on this coordination and make sure we all like meeting all agreement design, and we have any conflicts with all underground utilities or on-ground utilities. So basically, that's what's the next step design. That's why we can't move to 100 unless we clear all these like utilities and satisfy all the design. It's all requirement based on federal highway requirement and DDOT like laws. We have to make sure meet the requirement and law. Next question.
Yeah, I would just add to that.
Sure.
We were coordinating with WMATA and CSX on that retaining wall that I mentioned during the presentation, but also, and Samer mentioned the utility companies, DC Water and Pepco. We have a number of, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of utility pole impacts, but we do have a number of guy wires that create vertical clearance issues and just horizontal conflicts between the trail and the pole. So we do need to. We are coordinating with Pepco on relocation of those guy wires outside of the trail envelope. So those things take a little time, and then we have, we have to make sure that we're clear with storm drain improvements. We have to make sure that we're clear of underground utilities like telecom, underground electrical conduit, and gas and water and sanitary sewer.
The next question or comment, I guess, nice to have the physical non-discrimination information about this Human Rights Act is more comprehensive. Thank you, and we'll look into that. The next question is great to hear that WMATA agreed to close a curb cut. Why we are leaving so many existing curb cut even when sidewalk parking is discontinued? Try at Drayton House, southeast corner of Kansas, and the liquor store. Actually, I just mentioned about this, like answer that question. We cannot like close any curb cut impacting any business. And actually, we talked to each those businesses individually, and we try like to see if those like curb cut is usable now, and our businesses will use them. So we'll not be able to close them since they will impact their business. So we can't like close them on that. So that's the final solution. The only one I agree is WMATA, is what Steve mentioned. And Robert, I have questions. So I don't know what your questions.
Sammer,
Yes.
excuse me. We have several people that have raised their hands, including Robert. There are 6 people. We would like to address those live questions.
I'm sorry. Okay, we can. Do you want to see those questions? Okay, let's do the raised hands one now. Do you want to start with the first one, Molly?
Yes. So Robert, we will be unmuting you.
Okay, thank you. I have some question and comments. Along the Blair Road section where there are the businesses and the driveways, I want to encourage you and the bike advocacy community to think about how we might use color to make this trail section really stand out. Because I think that safety and people understanding that a sidewalk has been turned into a trail in a odd sort of business district could really help make that trail stand out and highlight where the potential pedestrian, cars in driveways, trucks in driveways, conflict points might be. In a small thing in Silver Spring, where the Met Branch Trail goes by a parking garage, Montgomery County painted the white driveway green. And that was a way to highlight to the motorists coming out of the garage that they were not just crossing a regular driveway. So the other thing in this area is you have done a great job with crosswalks and curb ramps to get people from the neighborhood across Blair Road to the trail, especially if they're a pedestrian. But bicyclists may not be on the sidewalks in those neighborhoods. They might be on the neighborhood streets. Yeah, that's an example of the green treatment. And I would like you to take a close look at where the crosswalks and curb ramps are and consider where the bicyclists would be in the street and what kind of movement they have to make to both cross the street and hit the curb ramp to get to the trail and then make a 90-degree turn to get on the trail. And how much width you're placing for those curb ramps and those little sections of sidewalk to make sure people have enough paved space to make those maneuvers. And if they don't, of course, they just wear out the grass or the tree box and compact the soil. It's possible that maybe people will just voluntarily use the driveways because they're wider and you give a cyclist more room. But it would be good to just think through that from how a bicyclist actually moves on each one of those connecting streets. as you finalize the curb ramps and crosswalks and everything. It's very good for you to move the guy wires and make those safe. Pinch points at utility poles are really challenging because unless you get the trail 2 or more feet off of the utility pole, and even at 2 feet, that pole is a hazard for the trail user. So I think I would encourage you to take great care there and consider, I know it's expensive, whether or not some utility poles could be moved just from the point of view of safety. They should be really heavily marked if they're close to the trail with reflective material, so cyclists at night pick them up, and they should be striped. I've seen in the district use of this, I believe it's pervious, but it's also a little bit rubberized sidewalk treatment, especially where trees are making the concrete sidewalk heave. And it seems to be working quite well. So I would also encourage the district to consider if there are any locations where that material might be a good material. It pretty much looks like asphalt, so visually be pretty consistent in any asphalt sections. So I think those were my my main comments. I have some more specific ones, and I'll take those up on the phone separately with staff. But overall, it looks very good, and really like how you're stressing to make the trail accessible to the neighborhood it goes through.
Thank you very much, Robert. We actually will check your accounts. We check, seriously, and we'll look into them. Actually, thank you very much. Actually, that's very good, like tips, and we'll take in considerations. Thank you very much.
Eric, I'd say something real quick.
Sure.
Yeah, great comments. I think the devil's really in the details, and we will be looking at those kind of details. I think it's a really good point on considering how bikes maneuver from cross streets and the ramps. So we will look at that. I've taken some notes, and then the reflective material on the utility poles. We are generally trying to keep a 2-foot offset, and the envelope is not only that clearance width, but also a vertical clearance, which ideally is 10 feet, but a minimum of 8 feet. So if we have, say, a guy wire that sort of angles through that envelope, we will be asking Pepco to relocate it. What they have said that they can do is they can use like a bracket arm, a horizontal bracket arm, extending out from the pole. If you can see my hands here, and then the guy wire extends down from that bracket arm, so sort of helping preserve that envelope. And then they also said that they could, the guy wires are used to keep the pole from bending when there's forces pulling on it in the other direction. But they can also use, sometimes they have the space, is what's called a push pole, where your pole is vertical and you get rid of the guy wire, and then you put a push pole on this side that sort of counteracts those forces that are pulling from the pole, the pole in the other direction. So not to get too into the weeds, but that's what we'll be working with Pepco and that kind of stuff.
So thank you, Steve. So for the next someone, we take anyone raising hand. Gio from Gio. I'm sorry, I pronounced your name, Gio. Would you mind like?
I believe it's Jeff. We just unmuted you.
Yeah, hi. This is Jeff Ramajam. I'm one of the 4B ANC commissioners, and thank you for doing the presentation tonight. I have a lot of questions, but I'll limit it to for now. I wanted to go back to the Blair Aspen intersection and ask if you are anticipating planning any kind of signal changes at that intersection, because one of the things that makes the Aspen Sandy Spring intersection so dangerous are westbound Aspen cars trying to turn south onto Blair Road, and it backs up because there's no when there's a lot of two-way traffic, cars will back up for blocks, and so then the cars are parked in this intersection. And so one of the things my constituents always talk about is whether there's enough road for enough room underneath the underpass for a turn lane, or just a left turn signal for those cars that are trying to get onto Blair South. And I also know that Aspen Blair intersection was one of the priority intersections in the livability study. And so I wonder if that's being included here as well. I think for the livability studies, it was focused more on how do you connect bicycles and pedestrians from that intersection to Butternut. But I'll stop there. That I'm really curious if you've thought about that kind of movement.
Do you want to answer that question, Steve, or?
I can respond a little bit to just some of what has been looked at previously, and then maybe on the technical side, Steve, you can chime in. But as far as the first question goes, the issue of cars queuing on westbound Aspen into the Sandy Spring Willow intersection, we did look at adding a left turn lane from westbound Aspen to southbound Blair in the preliminary design at the request. It came up in a lot of the community meetings that we had, but there wasn't a real consensus about it, and it doesn't really impact the trail one way or another. So it's not been included in this project, but there is enough space to accommodate it. And the trail, for that matter, going along Aspen Street. So if that's something that the ANC would like to take up, or people have thoughts on, we'd be happy to take their comments. And then secondly is you mentioned about the livability study and connecting bicyclists north to Butternut through Aspen Street or through Blair. As I mentioned at the top of the meeting, there's another project coming, the next phase of the Metropolitan Branch Trail, that will look at connecting Blair and Aspen up through Tacoma, through 4th Street, and up to Tacoma Park, Maryland, on the west side of the track. So in that next phase, we'll be looking at even more closely and making those connections sort of from Blair Road going north into sort of downtown Tacoma. And then I don't know, Steve, if you want to weigh in on any of the other thoughts you had.
The only thing I would add is that the traffic signal at Aspen and Blair is proposed for reconstruction. But yeah, other than that, the inclusion of a left turn westbound had not been included in this project to date.
Okay, thanks for those answers. I mean, I think that it would be good to look at sort of one or the other. Like you said, there's a lot of space underneath that underpass, and it might. I mean, I'm not sure that it matters one way or the other. There are a lot of opinions about it, but thanks for considering it.
You're welcome. Shmali, for the next one, where is this hand? Let's see who's next.
Why don't we go ahead and we will unmute call-in user 202-525. You are now unmuted.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hey, this is Franco Ovo. I actually live at Whittier and 3rd. I probably agree very much with what Jeff is describing at Aspen. I'm at Whittier Garden Condos. So we're pretty familiar with the traffic flow in the area. And one thing that I've noticed that you guys are going to do at the Whittier and Blair intersection is, I guess what I'm saying is you're going to reduce it to one lane. So a lot of times it diverts traffic onto Whittier. And if people are coming southbound on 3rd, at that intersection, there's no stop. They don't have to stop going north and south at the moment. And I have seen several collisions just at that intersection alone. So it might be something to consider, either a 4-way stop or some kind of traffic calming once people come off of Blair, thinking that they're going to shortcut traffic. Something to consider. The other thing, probably a more fun topic, is there any plans for path lighting on that stretch for the trail? And then also any measures or any suggestions to work with WMATA or CSX to beautify the wall in some way, doing some urban art or something that makes the trail a little bit more attractive?
Mike, do you want to answer this one? I think you have one question for the answer.
Yeah, I can answer the second part of the question. The opportunity to beautify the trail and the lighting as well. And I think there will be lighting specifically for the trail, but it'll be sort of focused lighting from the existing streetlights that are there, and that will sort of be modified to make sure that it meets the required levels for pedestrians and bicyclists on a trail. And then as far as the beautification and the art, we agree. We think there's a big opportunity here with obviously with that retaining wall, but also all up and down the trail. And I know that there's been a lot of interest in that. And we think that once the trail is built, that can be sort of an ongoing collaboration, partnership with DDOT and potentially WMATA and the community. We've had great success on the existing sections of the Met Branch Trail down in the Noma and Eckington areas, and WMATA, where there's, if you're familiar with the Powwow Mural Festival that is done on another similar retaining wall that's right up next to the Met Branch Trail there. So that's something that we see in the future. And certainly we've also worked with the DC Commission on Arts and Humanities to install public artwork and murals on other sections of the trail, where there's enough space to provide that.
Great, thank you, and I really appreciate this interaction and meeting that you guys have had.
Hey, guys, do you want me to expand on the lighting a little bit? Because we have Alan with us, and he could talk a bit about the lighting.
Oh yeah, sure.
Sure. This is Alan Yang. I'm from Precision Systems Incorporated. I'm the lighting designer on this project. For this entire project, we basically performed a lighting photometric analysis, which is to calculate the measurement of the level of lighting on the surface of the trail, which is measured by foot candle. So our design is consistent with the DDOT standard in terms of the average lighting level. The minimum lighting level cannot be below a certain value, cannot have a dark spot, and also the uniformity ratio, which is the average divided by minimum. So with that photometric analysis, we try our best to use the existing lighting, the light poles on the mostly on Pepco wood poles, and some of them are on metal poles at intersections, which maybe with traffic signals. We are converting the existing traditional high pressure sodium lighting into the energy efficient and better uniformity type of LED lights. And at some locations where we do not have existing wood pole to light the trail, we propose special lighting. Just looking at what's shown on this graphic, on this wood pole to the left, that's the pedestrian lighting. We call these Domos lights. They are designed for the kind of trail only. Some of these lights are mounted on wood poles. Some of them are mounted on metal poles for the purpose of this light only. So for the entire trail, we have a uniform design with kind of a similar lighting level throughout the whole trail. And the lighting photometric calculation had been approved by DDOT lighting engineer. That's pretty much the basic information for lighting design.
Thanks, Alan.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. So what's the next question? Who's raising his hand? Molly, to the next person who wants to speak.
Hello, call-in user 202596. We will unmute you. You are now unmuted.
Hi, my name is Yushena Evans. I put a few questions in the chat, but maybe they didn't come through. So the first I did see Cyril answered about what exactly is meant when you say the signal at first and rigs will be in interim condition. I just wasn't sure what that meant for drivers and pedestrians exactly. My second question was, can text be added to the slide to detail exactly what is being proposed for Blair, North Dakota, Peabody, and Kansas? Because it's hard to tell what exactly you are proposing to do with that complicated intersection just from the presentation. And my third question is, I said it's great that speed bumps have been installed on First Street Northeast. Will there be any effort to study traffic speeds on that street prior to construction to assess whether any other mitigation efforts might be necessary? And I ask that because there was problems with speeding, but there was also problems with stop sign running on First Street. So those are my questions. Thank you.
For the first question, the signal, interim signal, and the final signal, the reason we had two phases, because based on a request from the school at the intersection Riggs and First Street, they want the signal to be expedited in order for student safety, for crossing, and for the queuing along Griggs Road. So we expedite the signal design and construction for the student at this school. The signal will be like temporary till the trail moves to construction, and then we have to come back and redo a signal to add the bike signals and upgrade the signal to meet that trail like the design. And your second question was about Peabody's and Kansas. So the intersection, like you said, is very big intersections, and I agree with you. The picture is not maybe clear showing the design. Steve, can you move to that slide showing the intersection for Peabody and Kansas? Yeah, like what Steve explained earlier, we're adding like that left-hand movement just to relieve the queue along Blair Road. So we split that, we shift the queue from Blair all the way down to the middle. So we have to make that left-hand move to Kansas. So that's why we could, I think I know Steve going to talk more about this one or detail about these slides. If you just help me out with that one.
Yeah. And I might ask Robert to chime in as well. So essentially, in the existing condition, we have, if I could turn the line work off here, you would see there's 2 lanes southbound on Blair Road today. There's no left turn lane. And Peabody Street, what you're seeing here is the proposed condition. In the existing condition, Peabody Street is one-way westbound, so traffic can only go in this direction. There's no ability to go eastbound on this little segment of Peabody. So what we are concerned about, and again, I'll make this little diagram up, is that if there's no exclusive left turn lane here, in that situation, I think if we were just to put the trail in based on the existing condition, traffic would be turning left at Kansas, and they would have what is called a permissive movement. So basically, they can turn left on green, and we're just concerned that that presents a situation where you could end up with a collision with a cyclist and a left turning vehicle. So the idea is to eliminate that conflict by separating when the cyclist and the left turning vehicle can proceed through the intersection. So they're basically going under separate phases. So, but in order for us to do that, we have to create a left turn pocket lane, because otherwise we'll have left turning traffic stopping in the through lane and backing up traffic. So we create this left turn pocket lane that it adds a little queuing space for vehicles to make that left turn, and then we can vehicles that are continuing southbound will still be able to use these two lanes. Now, granted that it is one lane just north of this intersection, we wanted to maintain the two lanes here for queuing vehicles when the signal is red. So yeah, in the proposed condition, the idea would be to have our left turns here at Peabody, and this vehicle, when you get the green arrow, would continue, and you wouldn't stop here. You would also have the green arrow on Kansas, so it would be one continuous movement. And then there would be no left turns allowed at Kansas Avenue in the southbound direction. So that's kind of hard to sum up on the slide. And I realize it's a little confusing. This is kind of a confusing intersection, and we could probably spend a lot more time explaining all of the different phasing and the traffic movements at this intersection. I guess I'll ask Robert, did I capture all that? Is there anything that you would add? I want to clarify what I just said.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically it. We're actually also creating a left turn lane for the northbound Blair to go on west on Peabody. We're taking out that little existing concrete median. Like I said, we are widening Peabody Street in the section between Kansas and Blair. And then widening Blair so that we can get the left turn lane for southbound Blair. Those are the main improvements to that intersection.
Thank you. And my third question was about the speed bumps on First Street, and if you all will be doing studying traffic speeds prior to construction to assess whether any other mitigation efforts might be necessary, for example, to address stop sign running on that street.
We could bring your question to our traffic team and city team in DIDA, and we could see if we could do something before project end. So we'll take your question and we discuss it internally with our safety and traffic team within DIDA. Thank you very much. Welcome. Next one, Molly. Who's raising his hand?
Yes. So Tony, you've had your hand raised. I will unmute you.
Thank you, Molly. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, great. Thanks. First, I'll say kudos to DDOT. This is great to see. As many of us know who live in a neighborhood, this has been a long time coming, and I'm just glad to see that you're taking a step forward. I've got essentially one comment and one question, so I'm going to lead with my comment and then end with my question, so you can answer the question then. I've been in touch with Michael about this, so this will not be news to him, but I want to recommend DDOT reconsider adding either doing a Tacoma spur of the Met Branch Trail from North Dakota Avenue to connect up to Blair Road at that really messy intersection, or you know, I think that the illustrations have shown this is a very complicated project, and like I said, hats off to you. But I have to say, I think a lot of the complication would be unnecessary if the MBT ran from Blair Road to North Dakota Avenue, up along 3rd Street, which already is wide enough to have bike lanes, and then connected up somehow with 4th Street to where it could eventually connect up with Tacoma Park, Maryland. I think there's a lot of excessive complications by putting this along Blair Road with all the businesses and whatnot there, not to mention the loss of parking and traffic. But as again, this is a comment, this part. I would just recommend DDOT reconsider looking closely at North Dakota Avenue for a spur at a minimum, because there is, I'll tell you, as a parent of young kids, parents are, at least parents like me who are a little extra cautious with their bikes and kids, are not going to ride their bike on the MBT on Blair Road. We're going to go down 3rd Street and we're going to go up North Dakota Avenue, even if there aren't bike lanes, because that's a heck of a lot safer. We're going to feel safer riding on that than we are next to Blair Road, which operates like a highway a lot of the time, frankly, based on what I've seen with how fast people drive, because it's a commuter route. So that's the comment. Here's the question. I saw on the drawings that the plan is to take the MBT underneath now, Aspen over to Sandy Spring. And this is new to me. I've been following this for a long time. I've never seen this as part of the plans, because unless this is not going to be where the trail eventually connects up with Tacoma Park. But my question is, what is the plan for when the trail goes underneath the tracks and connects up with Sandy Spring? Where is it going to go from there?
So the trail will be going. The trail will be like using the community as well. Will be like a connection between Fort Lauderdale and Tacoma Metro Station. So the trail will be continue up to Tacoma Metro Station. So it's more like A to B points as well. It will be like a trail for the community and a commute between the two metro station, which is Fort Lauderdale to Tacoma.
Yeah, and I can respond to that as well. Okay. So if you look at this map, and it's a little small if you were to zoom in on the Tacoma area, going back to the concept plan for the Met Branch Trail in the early 2000s, there was a lot of debate about how the trail would get through the Tacoma area, downtown Tacoma Metro Station. And there was two alignments. There was a western alignment and an eastern alignment. And the Sandy Spring, when the trail goes north to Aspen Street and then goes under the railroad tracks and up Sandy Spring, that was feeding into the eastern alignment. So the eastern alignment was from Sandy Spring to Maple, you see that gray line, to Carroll Street, and then to Eastern Avenue, where it connects into Maryland. And then there's a western alignment that goes up, cuts over from Blair to 4th Street, and then up through 4th Cedar Blair intersection, and then actually behind the Cedar Crossing building and up to Spring Place, to Chestnut Street, and then down a big hill, and where it ties into Piney Branch. So those two alignments is the eastern and western alignment. So the Sandy Spring option, we've terminated it for now at the intersection of Sandy Spring and Maple. We think it still provides an access for people who live on that side of the tracks to get onto the trail. And then, as we mentioned before, we're going to start the design on the western alignment to make that connection all the way between Blair and Aspen and Piney Branch and Eastern, where it'll link up with the rest of the existing trail.
This is Tony. Thank you. Thank you for the explanation, Michael. I better understand that now. But I also think you've illustrated my point a little bit about the complexity. If you're going to run the trail eventually up 4th Street's a lot closer to North Dakota Avenue, and I think it would make for a much more pleasant riding environment, frankly, for folks to come down 3rd. Come down 4th, connect to 3rd, 3rd connects to North Dakota, and then you come over to that busy intersection, which is God help you with that intersection. But thank you for the response.
Thank you, Tony. It looks like we have 2 more raised hands to address before we want to swap back over to maybe answering some questions from the Q&A. Allison, you have your hand raised. I will unmute you now. Allison?
Oops. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry, I was on mute. My name is Allison Brooks, and I am the ANC Commissioner for Single Member District 4B08. I'm also the chair of the commission. I represent the area of Riggs Road and First Street, McDonald, that you were talking about at the beginning of the presentation. And so I have a couple of comments and questions with regard to that part of the presentation. I think that there's often sort of a dismissal of that small section of your plan. Although many residents in the community support the idea of a bike trail, First Street has never been, and McDonald Place have never been the ideal location. So I'd like to make sure that there's going to be a vigorous conversation with the National Park Service with regard to a off-road option for this area. Many senior citizens, and we have several disabled residents that live in this community that walk on these sidewalks, are concerned about the idea of bicycles on these narrow sidewalks. There will be nowhere for them to go if, in fact, a bicyclist comes up on them, and they're worried that they won't be able to enjoy their community in the same way that they have in the past. So that's one concern. With the disabled residents that I'm talking about, loud noises are unsettling for them, and so there's the concern that that will be upsetting as well if a bike horn or is honked or someone is shouting at them. Riggs Road is going to undergo a lot of construction in the near future, and so I'd just like to make sure that we're not going to live in 2 or 3 years worth of construction at this point on Riggs Road with the Capital Grid project, as well as this project, as well as whatever else is coming along that I don't even know about yet. And I guess I'll stop there. I understand that the stoplight at the intersection of First and Riggs Road, as well as South Dakota and McDonald, are coming, and they're built into this project. But just keep in mind that with all that construction on First Street at Riggs Road, we have difficulty getting off of the block. So we need those stoplights as quickly as possible. And we were actually expecting them prior to the summer of 2021. So I guess I said I was going to stop, so I'll stop there.
Sarah, you want to respond to her, or Michael?
Yeah, I can take a stab
Sure.
at the question. Might need some just help from the team as well.
Sure.
We understand there is a lot of things happening in that area. And so we are coordinating with the different parties, such as like PEPCO that is doing work in that area to make sure, we are cautious and we in regards to construction and how much construction the neighborhood sees. I shared with you, Commissioner Brooks, that, unfortunately, we do have to do this construction in order to provide this trail for the many users that are going to use it and to provide just a safer street for all residents and users of the road. And we we do thank you for your comment in regards to the streets that you classified as narrow and just like the parking restrictions as well. We do take those comments into account. And so we'll make sure to look into those concerns if we haven't done so yet, and make sure that I follow up with you via phone or via email.
Yeah, that's fine. Before you were at GDOT, Ms. Molina, we had this conversation in several community meetings, and basically what we were told was we should just be happy that you're not going to take away any of our parking spaces. And so there was the inference that if we just didn't get along and accept what was coming down the pike, that we would be punished through the loss of parking spaces. And so I just want to, again, make sure that we're all clear that this is not widely supported at this end of the trail. A bike path is supported, and we are in favor of that, but not this location. And that's for a variety of reasons.
Yes, we understand, and I do apologize for the conversation that transpired prior to this team. Definitely, we should, I apologize for how it came out. We are willing to work with you and just have the community understand why this trail is important and how we can work together to highlight some of the improvements that will be done through this project. So I do appreciate your understanding, and I do appreciate your collaboration with EDOT.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add, echo everything that Cyrus said. We appreciate your comments, and we look forward to working with you. We've had a lot of walkthroughs and things on First Street, and so I understand the frustration and I think everyone would agree that the ideal path would be the one through the park property, and we look forward to working on that with you all. I just wanted to say, there was a question earlier about the traffic safety and traffic calming on First Street, and we've worked to implement those things on their own timeline, so you don't have to wait for the project. And those things have taken time as well, but we tried to install the speed humps and put the traffic signal on its own timeline, and that'll continue whether the trail is there or not, working with CYRA and with our traffic safety team. So thank you.
Okay, thank you all. It looks like we have 2 more hands raised. Garrett, we will unmute you now. Hello, Garrett.
Great. Good evening. Thank you all so much for this presentation, for the time and all the detail. My name is Garrett Hennigan. I'm with the Washington Area Bicyclist Association, and we've been working on this project and this segment in particular for quite a few years. So excited to be at this stage. I have, I believe, 3 questions, and I will try to limit myself to those. First, to spend another moment talking about driveways. I think a previous commenter pointed to some excellent examples in Montgomery County as to how driveways can be improved for better visibility, and especially the green treatment, I think, is great. I do want to maybe ask the question that in previous discussions we had talked about the possibility of first closing some curb cuts. I understand the difficulty there, and if not that, then redesigning the curb cuts to reduce the width. Some of these, especially South Kansas, there's at least one curb cut that is more than 42 feet wide, which really prioritizes driving and trucks over the needs of trail users who will be pretty exposed at those places. So I wonder, as my first question, are you taking advantage of opportunities to narrow these curb cuts if we cannot close them? That's question number one. Two, would love for you to talk briefly about signage, wayfinding, trail branding, things like that, in addition to art. And number three, if indeed we can't close these curb cuts, I wonder if DDOT could invest some resources and planning time into pulling together some tools and resources to maybe temporarily close some curb cuts that are very obviously not used at all, but that a business owner might have a financial interest in keeping around, something like planters or other big barriers that could effectively close a curb cut in the interim, but allow that owner to maintain it for future sale or development or whatever. I think I will keep it there, and thank you.
I could answer the curb cut questions. So we modified the curb cuts that actually has been like unchained, and actually we modifying the design from curb cut, which is at the liquor store. We modified the width of the curb cuts, and that will be possible. But closing curb cuts, I cannot promise you that at all, because we've been discussing with the right-of-way team. We did as well as the permitting office and access management for this curb cut to close them. Actually, it's going to be impossible to close them. So I cannot promise you we could be able to close these curb cuts, because those businesses, like I said, they will say to impact their business. So we cannot be able to close something. We'll get a risk on a business along Blair Road. But modify those curb cuts will be possible. And we already done it at the liquor store. We actually will modify the size of that curb cut with the new design. And for your second question, I would say I think Michael will keep better understanding about those, like branding and for the trail. I think Michael. Sure, some okay.
Yeah, so the Met Branch Trail has its own sort of branding design, which is this green, red, and white package, which is includes wayfinding signage along the existing section of trail, and that will be extended to this section. You know, this section of trail includes a couple turns and twists and things like that. So these signs are included throughout, directing people so that they know how to follow the trail, but also how to get to the trail and connect to the metro stations. And it has a consistent sort of pattern connecting the rest of the city through, you know, from Tacoma to Fort Totten to Brookland, down to Edgewood, Eking, and down by Union Station. You'll see this familiar Met Branch Trail wayfinding.
Thank you very much for all that detail. I think that does it for me. Thanks.
Okay, we have one more user who has their hand raised for a question. That is Jason. Jason, I'm unmuting you.
Thank you, and thank you so much for the work on this. It's incredibly exciting to see it advancing. I wanted to ask about connectivity at the northern end of this stretch. A longstanding problem for safe bike travel in the area is the lack of a safe east-west route between Tacoma and Points West. Currently, the only designated bike route is Butternut Street, and there's a bike lane there, but it only goes about halfway between Blair and Georgia. I think it can't be extended due to road width. And then Butternut is a major commuter and commercial route, and it's just not a safe or comfortable place to bike. And of course, this becomes more important with the MBT going in there, and with the Walter Reed development, which has a school and is supposed to have a swimming pool and other amenities. And so Walter Reed's going to have this great new bike path on Aspen with the famous sheds, but there's no safe way right now to get from Walter Reed and that trail on Aspen to Tacoma and the MBT. And so there's been some discussion of maybe making one of the east-west routes one way and adding a contraflow bike lane. Van Buren is already one way past the rec center, so that would be an option, or maybe Whittier or Dahlia. But I just wanted to sort of get your thoughts on this, see if maybe this could be considered. I know you are moving towards thinking about the western alignment for going past Tacoma, and if as you do that, sort of thinking about how this could connect to Points West could be part of the conversation.
I can respond to that.
Thanks, Michael.
The second part of the comment and question about sort of the east-west connection to Walter Reed. And so, yeah, I think the question is right. There's no clear connection between what's proposed at Walter Reed with where there's actually two paths, one on Aspen Street, Georgia Avenue, and 16th Street. But there's also another trail within the campus between Georgia Avenue and not quite all the way connecting to 16th Street. But that one on what I believe is called Main Drive is lines up with the entrance at Butternut Street, and we do have bike lanes on Butternut Street. So I think as we start looking at the next phase of design for the Met Branch Trail and the western line, that could be a natural connection. But if there are other connections, whether it be Aspen Street or Van Buren Street, that'd be something we'd be happy to hear your thoughts or comments on. And I'll use this to put in a plug for Move DC as well. Move DC is our long-range transportation plan, and we update it once every couple of years, and it's up for update right now, and it's out for public comment. So, the Met Branch Trail is, as I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, it's been 20 years in the making. And, right now we're setting our vision for the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years in that DC document. So you can find that on our website and put your comments in for bigger picture connect items like this, where how does one area connect to another? We'd be happy to hear your thoughts.
Thank you. And Michael, just to be clear, I think the concern about Butternut is that Greyhound buses coming up from Union Station use it to get to Silver Spring because they can't take the stretch of Blair north of Piney Branch, and metro buses and a ton of commuters. So it doesn't feel safe. So I think that's why there's the urge to find an alternate way for bikes. Thank you.
Mal, do you have any of these questions or advanced question or like now in a text?
I believe we have addressed everybody who already asked a question. If you previously had your question answered, I would appreciate if you lower your hand. If you called in and raised your hand, you can dial *3 to lower your hand. Feel free to go ahead and start answering some questions from the Q&A.
Okay, thanks, Molly. So we start. Can you describe the first northeast on street section? Will there be a painting lane impact on parking? Actually, that section will be a shared bike with vehicles, so there is no separation in lanes, and we're not going to impact parking. So it'll be like it should be shared, same lane. Can text be added to the slide to detail exactly what is being proposed for North Dakota, Peabody, Kansas? It's hard to tell what is supposed to be going there. So we can provide more better like picture or image showing the operation for that section, just to go more detail. Steve, would you mind like get more like better illustrations? We could like showing. We could upload to the website once we have something like been accessible. We could upload to Met Branch website. And
I guess, in what way are we interested in the operation, showing like the different phases and what the who's moving during which phase? Is that kind of what we're getting at?
What do you mean, Simon? Do you exactly, Steve?
Well, I guess I'm trying to. I mean, we can show a plan view, right, versus an existing, like is what we're showing on the screen. But I guess I don't know if it would help maybe to show the existing travel, like turning movements. Like on the left side of the screen here, we just show to the road, but we don't really show like, what the lane configuration is. As far as what movements are through and what movements are left, right. Or we can provide something that is more of a phasing diagram that shows, for each phase of the signal, which vehicle has the right of way, who has the green, right? You know what I mean?
Oh, I see what you mean.
looking for clarification on what the desired deliverable is. What is the comment they're asking for?
Because the comment is not very like detail explain, like you just show more text, adding a slide to detail exactly what is being proposed for North Dakota. Can we have the phasing diagram and the layout in the same like slide, or maybe just upload the traffic report to the website and like you will just like read the report showing the illustrations? I think that will be more beneficial.
Okay, yeah, we should probably, let's discuss some more offline.
Sure.
Yeah.
Have you considered adding automated enforcement to protect the trail user from vehicle along any approaching the corridor, especially Blair Road? Usually, once the trail is complete, our safety traffic team will run evaluation along the project and see where it needs to be like enforced. So that will be done after the project is complete. So we could see where is the section of the trail will be enforced and to provide more enhanced safety along Blair Road or any section of the trail. So that would be after the project is complete. We have to evaluate the project overall. Why are the segment that expected bikes to board the sidewalk to continue rather than sharing the road? Why are there segments that expect bikes to continue rather than sharing the road? Because we worry about the bicyclist safety, so we try to isolate the vehicles from bicyclists. And yep. And if you want to add any more on this, I don't know, sure, Steve or Michael.
Yeah, and I just responded to this in the chat as well. Oh. So the Blair Road section, the trail is at the level of the current sidewalk, and so the trail will be widened, a widened version of the sidewalk, and it will be clear that it is the color of the pavement, that it's not a walk, and it'll be wide enough between 10 and 12 feet to accommodate both bikes and pedestrians, that they can share that space.
So all these questions answered.
We have one person who has raised their hand if you would like to take their question before we run out of time.
Okay, let's take that question.
Okay, Julie, I am unmuting you now.
Hi, good evening. Thank you. I think there one question, I put a bunch in the chat and I think they mostly got answered, but I wondered if you could talk about the experience for users of all modes at Van Buren and Blair, specifically accessing the trail. If you're on the trail, what it's like to cross Van Buren. And then also if you are coming from specifically Van Buren westbound, accessing the trail, and drivers crossing the trail. If you could dive into that for a minute. But I really appreciate this, and I have a elementary school son of my own and we are both really excited about this opportunity to have better access to downtown and to Silver Spring, close to our home. So I really appreciate all the work that you've done to put all of our feedback into the plan. So thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, sorry we sort of skipped by, kind of breezed by Van Buren, but basically it will be a full signal at that intersection as it is today, and that's one of the intersections that we're looking at having southbound left turning protection for users traveling in the north-south direction, users that are trying to get to the trail from Van Buren. On the west side of Van Buren, there'll be a head signal, and it'll be a push button activated, and there'll be a pedestrian ramp. There will be lighting at the intersection, And it'll be similar to what it is today. The crossing distance will be narrower since the trail will be taking up the right travel lane, the outside northbound travel lane. What else? I guess kind of provide, the other thing I can do is bring up the rendering. So you can sort of visualize the barrier here. But the barrier, this is at Whittier, but if you can kind of imagine, the barrier will kind of terminate in advance of the intersection. I don't have an exact distance at this point, but it will be probably 25 to 50 feet from the intersection. So we want to have good sight lines, you know, at the intersection, so the barrier won't be that tall. It will still be lower than the AASHTO like object height, technical, but so if you have a child, and obviously a child that's shorter than an adult, they should still be visible as they stand there at the intersection, at the ramp. So I think that's essentially it. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. It reminded me of another related question. We have a lot of heavy truck traffic that makes that turn off of northbound Blair onto eastbound Van Buren to get into the hauling facility that is right on the other side of the tracks. So, and I'm just curious, I want to make sure that that corner, that turn is made so those trucks don't crush any of your infrastructure. But also that they have enough advance notice to not crush any cyclists.
Right. Yeah, so we have a program called Auto Turn, and basically there's templates for various types of design vehicles, and we run those for each intersection as we work on the design. And so we'll be checking. Can you give us a sense of, are they like single unit trucks? Are we talking something like a box truck, or that are getting to that? Would you say that was on the other side of the tracks?
There's a hauling service facility, I would say tanker trucks would be the best description.
Like, are they articulated like a? It's not like
articulated like a semi. Yes.
Oh, okay. It's okay. So a semi truck. Okay. Yeah, I guess we'll have to take a closer look at that. I don't know that we really anticipated.
I mean, I'd like that facility to go away, but for now, they're there.
I'll just ask you a few questions. Do they use the entire roadway width when they do make that turn? Like
yes.
Okay, so if there's a vehicle waiting on westbound Van Buren, that might have to back up a little bit to allow that truck to make the turn.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they probably use the inside travel lane to make that turn today.
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll check it. I guess I'd like to get a better feel on what the actual the design vehicle is. We have, it's called a WB40, then we go up to like a WB62. I'm guessing it's not a WB62. So we could check like a WB40. If you ever see one and you can snap a picture of it, that'd be great. But you know, it's something we can check on site too as well.
Happy to do that. I'll send it. I can do that tomorrow and send one to Syra.
Yeah. Okay. Great. And then Andrew, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think you addressed everything. Yep.
Oh, and just as a follow-up on your first question, we are proposing crosswalks on all legs of Van Buren, so all 4 legs.
Oh, yay! That's a good upgrade. Thank you.
Wait a minute. That's right, Andrew, right? All 4 legs?
Yes, but I think that's the existing conditions already, is that there's crosswalks at all 4 legs of the intersection.
They could use zebra.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll be high visibility. which are kind of like the piano stripes.
Yep. Thank you.
So the next question we have would be upgrade the light under the Van Beuningen. I think underpass be including in the project. Alan, can you answer? Alan's on here. Just want to double check with Alan.
I'm sorry, the question was about lighting.
Yeah, will upgrade light under the Van Beuningen underpass be included in the project? I'm not sure this. If, do you have any clues, Steve, for this question, or?
I don't think we're currently looking at lighting under Van Buren. Alan, are you still with us? I think we're probably looking at lighting under Aspen. But we could
yeah, that's why I recall, but I'm not sure. Let's follow with this question. We can just discuss this offline, and we could get back to you about this question.
Yep.
And yep.
So it's 8:30 now.
Yes.
I think we'd like to wrap up. There's a couple questions remaining in the chat. I'm not sure how we want to follow up with those folks. Maybe we can get in one or two more and then follow up with the rest.
Yeah. Which question we have here? Will the speed limit will be lowered on Blair Road to bring it more line with a new design? Actually, I think the speed limit is really like it's already like I think 25 miles per hour. Is it now? So that's the speed limit.
Posted 25 north of Kansas. I think it goes. Does it go to? I think it goes to 30 south of Kansas.
So guys, when you did that analysis, will be like part. Okay, double check it. See the next question while you doing that. Are you adding continuous crossing where having to exist point to a trail? Sorry.
Yeah, so posted 30. This is actually south of the project where the first sign posts it at 30, but in the northbound direction. So I don't know what's the protocol changing the speed limit. I mean, if we went from 30 to 25, or
we have to do like speeding study. I think that would be prior to or after the project complete. We can do like speeding study and see what's satisfied speed will be after the trail is built. And also on Blair Road, we take in one lane and convert to parking. So we'll that kind of like a road diet. So that will help traffic will slow down because we taking a lane as parking along Blair Road. So converting from two travel lane to one lane, would that help to reduce the speed along Blair Road? And once the trail is designed and constructed, we could ask our traffic team to provide like a speeding study along Blair Road. If we could like meet the new design, what the speed study would be like meeting the design. And I think we should wrap it up now here because we have time. So and we could look. We already had this question. We could just answer the rest of the question, and we both answer on our project website. If you could just go look for our link, we provide the end of the slides, and you will find all the answers for all these questions been during this presentation. And thank you everyone for attending. And we're looking for more comments and feedback from you. And we're happy like to get more from you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good night.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.